And welcome back to All Sports Western New York. I had the pleasure of working with this gentleman for 6 years at WBBZ-TV, and of course, everybody recognizes him. Rick Azar, who's in town, and had a great outing last Friday night at the History Museum as the Giants of Television with Irv and Tom. And coming up in a few weeks right here on WBBZ, we'll be having another special of that. But tonight we're going to talk sports.
Okay.
And you finally did it. You wrote a book.
Yes.
And the book is entitled Azars Attic.
Yeah, Tales from Azars Attic.
Tales from Azars Attic. And that goes back to your radio show of the 50s, that title.
Yes, that's right. The Azars Attic, I thought this was very, very clever. I wrote about it in the book when there was a guy in town who worked for WGR Radio. His name was Bob Glacy. Terrific, he had a voice down to here, and he had that evening show, and it was beautiful, great play, played great music. And he called the show Glacy's Basement, right? So when I got the opportunity to have my own show in Niagara Falls at WHLD, I thought I was so clever, and I'm going to call it Azars Attic instead of the basement. That's where that came. That's a true story. That's where it came from, Azars Attic.
The book, why? I've read the book. I read the book this weekend. And
I didn't even have to pay you to do that. You did that on your own.
No, and I didn't pay to buy it either.
I figured
the publisher sent it to me. And a lot of what was in the book I was already familiar with, but there was plenty of stuff in the book that I had never known. I didn't know about, kind of the history of your acting career and how your family moved from Brooklyn to Buffalo and your dad and all that. So there's a lot of there's some personal things in it, but then you get into the whole Channel 7, and you really break down every significant sports figure that you dealt with over your career, and there was many, and there was some heavy hitters. But why did it take so long to get that all put together, Rick?
I don't know. I guess in telling stories, which I was always doing about this, we'd be in a bunch of guys talking and so forth, and I'd open my mouth. Oh, I say, yeah. When I remember when Ted Williams, and they kind of look. Come on. I said, really, I interviewed Ted Williams, and this went on with all kinds of people in the sports world. And and they would say, you ought to write a book. I say, yeah. You ought to write a book. Why don't you write a book? So I finally decided to sit down. I didn't have anything else to do. So I sat down in front of my typewriter and wrote the book.
We have some pictures from the early years, and before the show, he says, "Oh, don't show those." I said, "Why not? You've never looked better." Well, this is from Sugar Ray Leonard when he was in town, and you have a whole chapter in there about fighters, and you talk about Sugar Ray, and you talk about Elliot Apollo. Right. That's Bobby Rydell.
Yes.
And that's Buffalo Bandstand. Talk a little about Buffalo Bandstand, because that show also enabled you to actually fill in one week for Dick Clark on America's Bandstand.
On American Bandstand, yeah. American Bandstand got so popular that all of the local stations were having one of their own. Rochester Bandstand, Syracuse Bandstand, Buffalo Bandstand. And we had a stock of great disc jockeys over at the radio station. KB Radio, I mean, if anybody wanted to have a promotion on their brand new recording, they came to KB Radio. Because it was a 50,000 watt station, covered the whole East Coast and all of that kind of stuff. So for some reason, when American Bandstand got so popular, all the local stations had their own, including Buffalo. So they decided to have me do it instead of one of the jocks over at the radio station, because none of them had any TV experience, not that you really needed that much. So that's how I got to do the show. They gave it to me, and as a result of that, I got to go to Philadelphia to substitute for Clark when he was on vacation.
I don't think we have the picture here, but I know in the book there's a Photoshop picture of you with Dick Clark that never really took place.
It was never really taken.
They put you over another picture with Dick, so it made it look like you guys were together. And the other odd thing is you're a classically trained violinist, so you weren't a rock and roll guy.
Not really.
I guess you had to fake it for the show.
Yeah, I did. I was a jazz guy.
Yeah.
That's what I was. Grew up with Duke and all of the Count and all of those people, and rock and roll. Please get out of here.
You never thought it would last, right?
Yeah, I never thought it would last, right?
All right. We got a couple early shots at Channel 7. Let's put those up, because you signed the station on 58.
Yes.
You didn't start out as the sports guy. You did some news.
Right.
Stan Barron was there doing sports. Stan, of
guy.
course, everybody remembers him from his days at BEN.
Right.
But the way the business was, and of course there you are with Irv and Tom. You know, this didn't click right away. I mean, Irv said test patterns got higher ratings than you guys did initially. But over time, you guys really grew, and there was a rapport. And it wasn't just a rapport, but there was an aggressive nature to the way WKBW did news, sports, and weather.
And that was thanks to Irv, because he was an aggressive kind of guy. He had something called pulse beat news on KB radio. I mean, it was upbeat. It wasn't. And television news at that time put everybody to sleep. That's why they had it on at 11 o'clock at night. So they wanted to make sure they were going to go to get a nice sound sleep. And he changed it. He changed the face of television news. And it was because of Irv that it did that. And it got to be exciting, and we got to be '1. And thanks to him. He's in town, incidentally.
Right.
Yeah. And we've had a great couple of visits already. and he's people like him just don't come along too often, where they take the reins and say, get out of our way. And that's what happened to Channel 7.
Hey, we're going to take a break. When we come back, more with Rick Azar right after this on All Sports Western New York.